Facebook has faced a great deal of criticism ahead of the 2020 election for not properly regulating the spread of disinformation on the company's platform. Yesterday, Facebook announced that it had removed dozens of fake accounts linked to a coordinated effort to manipulate social media users. In a statement released earlier today, Facebook said that they have uncovered 3 disinformation campaigns. The first operation, they say, originated in Russia and primarily targeted Ukraine, as well as its neighboring countries. And the second, they say, originated in Iran and focused mainly on the U.S. And then there's a third network from Myanmar and Vietnam. It targeted audiences in Myanmar. Joining me now is CNET senior producer Dan Patterson. So, Dan, I want to kick it off and read this statement. It was kind of interesting. The company says this, and I believe we have it. It says, "We don't want our services to be used to manipulate people," and goes on to say that we're taking down these pages, groups, and accounts based on their behavior, not the content they posted. So if it's not based on the content, what do they mean exactly by this?
All right, Rena, I want to focus on some words here. Coordinated, inauthentic, activity. So activity there, behavior, is key to understanding Facebook's policy and maybe policy change. Look, over the last 2 years, we have seen dozens, maybe hundreds of examples of content, propaganda, disinformation, posts, images, memes, that kind of thing. Now what Facebook is targeting, and other social media accounts, is the activity. This is crucially important because you, Rena, may log into your account and send a message as you, Rena. That's pretty authentic. But if I create an account with the intent to deceive and I log in, I might not be a bot, I might not be somebody who is just monkeying around or having fun. If I have political intent and my behavior mirrors that political intent, Facebook will now target you and remove that content.
It's so complicated. And, we've got these elections coming up, right? I'm curious about Iran. What more do we know about a dozen accounts that they're looking at there? And it targeted politics here in the U.S.? Yeah, so these Iranian accounts are pretty interesting. So we have seen Iranian coordinated, inauthentic activity on Twitter and larger or more public social networks. Now we're seeing this type of activity coming from what they allege to be Iranian state media that has targeted not just the U.S. elections, but U.S. and Iranian relations. So this goes back to just before Soleimani was targeted and killed, and the ongoing game that is diplomacy between the two countries. So it's not just U.S. elections, but it's U.S. politics and U.S. diplomacy. There were also more than 100 accounts that were also looked at and suspended. They were based out of Russia and Ukraine. What do we know about that? Were they targeting political groups as well? Well, this is fascinating, Rena. So, as we know, Russia's GRU and the IRA certainly used Facebook and other social media platforms to propagate disinformation ahead of the 2016 election and afterwards. But we saw long before that election, Ukraine used as, and I'll repeat a cliche that we often talk about in cyber, Ukraine is a test bed for cyber attacks and disinformation aimed at other countries. So Ukraine, again, is a test bed. So when we see Russia targeting them, yes, they have their own political motivations, and Russia in many ways feels as though they own parts of Ukraine. So they have motivations that are pretty easy to understand, but they also use Ukraine and the Ukrainian people to figure out what's effective and what's not effective before launching similar attacks in the West. And there were also a number of accounts, it's my understanding, in Myanmar and Vietnam that were suspended because they tried to discredit 2 Asian telecom companies. So it's not just politics, is it businesses as well that... That's exactly right. This is fascinating. So one of the things that we should all understand about social media disinformation is that it's inexpensive and easy to do because the instruments of disinformation are at your fingertips, meaning social media. So if you have an adversary or at least some sort of strategic opponent, it's pretty easy to launch disinformation campaigns targeting your opponents. And we often see business as the target of disinformation and social media propaganda. They were able to take down some of these accounts and suspend them. What does Facebook believe has been the most effective in shutting down disinformation?
Well, we don't know what Facebook believes is the most effective tactic, but I think that when they use external experts, they at least, so like the Atlantic Council, the German Marshall Fund, and others, they at least have external verification that it's, hey, look, it's not just us saying this, it is other expert organizations tied to, in many cases, North Atlantic, like NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organizations. So those who share our strategic goals here in the West.
So that gives them a little bit more credibility. That's not just
exactly
coming from
right.
them internally, that these are other independent factors verifying this. Dan Patterson, thank you.